Over the past 6 years, I've been transitioning into more of a long-term investor as my financial situation changes. And in this video, I want to be sharing exactly what I hold, the percent allocation that I hold, and also maybe a quick insight into my general long-term investment strategy. I want to say at the outset of this video that, hey, this is not going to be relatable to everyone, of course. And long-term to me means holding for 10 years or more. So if you're really not looking to hold things for that long, then this is just not going to be a relatable video. I hope that you get some value from it if you do decide to watch it, but yeah, it's probably not going to be super, super relevant. Anyways, I do want to have some caveats with this. Okay, first, yes, I've been doing it for 6 years now with long-term investments. That means I have a lack of long-term experience. Why? Because realistically, the true legends in long-term investment have 20, 30, 40, 50 years of investment history. 6 years is very novice in my opinion, but of course, I'm not coming at this as an authority. I'm just showing you exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. You can take what is valuable from that for you and discard the rest, if anything at all. Anyways, again, that is to say this is not to be constituted as this is the best possible portfolio. You should do exactly as I say. No, absolutely not. We all have different preferences. We all have different sort of wants and needs with our investments. So again, take what is valuable to you, discard the rest, as with anything else. On top of that, I have benefited massively from a general up-only market. Yes, there have been some nasty, sharp corrections. We've seen many of them actually, even in the past 5 to 6 years, but they have been relatively short-lived. If you look throughout history, you will realize very quickly these corrections, or corrections in general, bear markets in general, can last for a much longer time. 10 years basically sideways with no new all-time highs. We have not necessarily had that. Even 2022, which was considered a bear market, was just 1 year of downside price action, then straight up from there. In the context of history, that is absolutely nothing. Now, again, or again, just want to say, not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what I'm doing. Take what is valuable to you, discard the rest. Okay, beautiful. Now that we've gone through that, let's get into the actual returns that I've had. This is my Vanguard account returns. Yes, I do have longer history than this, particularly with Bitcoin. That is through my Gemini account. But in this case right here, for my Vanguard, you can see since 2022, which gives me about 4 years in the game, it has been generally up and to the right. Yes, I have added more to this account over time, which is why the gains over time have become, more and more volatile. But generally, this has been in my opinion, relatively good. And I should also say, by the way, in caveats here, my perspective, again, with long-term investments is long-term, 10 years minimum, and I'm not trying to hit home runs. What I'm trying to do is to let my finances appreciate and compound, but I'm not trying to take big risks. So I did want to just get that in there really, really quickly. Anyways, there you go. And we'll go over the general overview here of just things that I hold. One of them is, of course, Bitcoin. No other crypto, by the way. Technology, I like triple Qs, that's an ETF. Defense technology, I like several different ETFs, but specifically the SHLD. And robotics, of course. Biotech, growth ETFs, dividend stocks, rare earth ETFs, and solo stocks. And generally, I like to keep my amounts that I invest in solo stocks significantly less than the ETFs, because solo stocks have much more upside potential. Now, you might be listening to that statement, you're like, why wouldn't you just put everything in the solo stocks? Because they also have more risk. Now, here is what I have learned in long-term investments, or just in the long-term investing game. It is basically winner take all. Yes, there can be multiple winners, but it is more or less a few winners take everything and everyone else gets shut the fuck out, and they basically have little to no actual appreciation and value. They're mostly just going up in price due to the debasement of currency, aka inflation. So when I'm looking at solo stocks, yes, they have a lot more potential, but I don't want to be in the name of the game of trying to pick the winners too much when I can focus mostly on the ETFs, which I know will at least have some of the winners, or they will have the winners, but also a lot of losers. So the gains get diluted. But yes, I will choose some solo stocks, and yes, some of them have been significant winners. Anyways, We'll move on to the actual allocation percentages. These were the starting sort of percentages. Of course, these have changed around as things grow. But basically, I had Bitcoin at 45%. The technology ETFs, triple Qs at 5%. Defense tech 20%. That's a big one for me. AI and robotics 5%. Growth ETFs 3%. Dividend stocks 10%. Rare earths 2%. And then solo stocks is 10%. But that's all of them added up together. So it's significantly less per individual stock. Anyways, first we'll talk about Bitcoin, and I want to address something right at the outset. Okay, so the best things about Bitcoin is that, one, it is the best performing asset since inception, and since I started to really hold it for the long term, which was in 2019, it has done an order of magnitude or more better than everything else that we're going to look at today. So in my opinion, it really is the penultimate asset. It is beautiful as far as the traits that it has: digital scarcity, censorship resistance, portable, fungible, liquid, easily collateralized. All of these things make it, in my opinion, a much better version of gold. I know that statement will piss off people, and by the way, I'll piss off people even more with the next statement. As far as portable, or as far as holding your own Bitcoins, I do not hold my own Bitcoin. I do not like having wallet risk, if you want to call it that. One, because, I might actually lose it, and then, I just don't trust myself in that way. I'm a very, very clumsy person, to be honest. And then two, there's also just the physical attack vector as well. Like, if people, know that you have a fucking Bitcoin wallet, they're going to come to your house with a damn gun and say, give me your Bitcoins or die. And I don't want to deal with that. So yes, I hold Bitcoin through now. I primarily focus on the Bitcoin ETF, but priorly I was using Gemini, and I just let them deal with that. Yes, I understand that there are risks with that. Absolutely, I accept that risk, and I understand that it is very possible that I may run into a terrible situation in the future. It is what it is. But I just don't want the other risk. That is what I've decided for myself. I totally understand that many people would disagree with me. Many people will completely run the other way and say, Crown, you're a fucking moron. Maybe I am. But at the same time, we all have our different preferences. Don't let my decision be your decision. Maybe for you, it is better to hold them. I don't know. Anyways, why Bitcoin? It is designed to combat currency debasement. That really seems to be the name of the game in long-term investment, because most things are going up due to, of course, currency debasement, aka inflation, and it's very difficult to find assets that actually accrete in value. In fact, if we look over here, I've made a little graph about the actual returns of various assets. Now, Bitcoin is around about 30%. Some people think it's a lot more, but I wanted to go with the lower end of that, so I put it at 30%. For example, the next best thing is going to be the NASDAQ tech sector, just even the top 100, which is like 12 to 16%, let's say. S&P 500 is going to be around 10%. Real estate, a little bit more, a little bit less than that, and everything else is pretty much very small, maybe not even accounting for inflation. Bonds probably have a negative return when you account for inflation. Real estate, there are advantages of real estate, by the way, but for investment purposes, I don't personally like it. Business degree, not great. As well as sociology degree, negative return. In fact, that's not even accounting for inflation. And then stuff like a Lambo, other sort of assets, which are really liabilities, this is just massive negative. So it's actually, in fact, the opposite of Bitcoin. It loses 30% a year, something like that. Anyways, yeah. So we'll take a quick look at Bitcoin. Again, I started to long-term invest in this thing in my Gemini many, many moons ago. This was back in 2019. And since then, just to show from kind of bottom to top, this is not even including the Rona dump, about 1,800%, gains. So in my opinion, not bad. In fact, quite good. And this is, a massive order of magnitude better than pretty much anything else that we're going to look at. So yeah. Anyways, moving on from there, let's see. Triple Qs for my technology ETF. So this is the second best performing sector, just technology in general. And you'll notice that pretty much everything we're going through in this list is technologically based in some way. They're all subsectors of the technology sector. And why is that? Because technology creates real value via productivity and efficiency gains. It's always desired and needed. Everyone wants more technology. Why? To make their life easier, more comfortable, more this and that. I mean, human beings are basically the sex organs of the technological world, right? Like we just exist to create better technology, it seems like. That is kind of what it seems like in a way. But, even one of like basically the second best performing sector, if we measure from the Rona dump lows to where things are currently at, this is a 250% gain. It's good. That's really good. It's really, really good. Really, really good. It ain't fucking 1,800%. And really, for Bitcoin, it's more than 1,800% if we were to measure from the Rona dump lows, the corrective period of 2020, if you will, the pandemic. Anyways, yeah. Moving on from there, and again, that was pretty simple. And carrying on with the simplistic tradition, it would be the defense technology ETFs. SHLD and ITA are the overwhelming majority of my holdings here. More than probably 90%. EUAD is a terrible, catastrophic mistake that I've gotten into, but I will continue to hold, and I'll explain why. So basically, my thoughts with defense technology is that all countries have a strong incentive, not even a strong incentive. It is existential to invest in your defense technology. You have persistent force buyers, basically. Every country that wants to exist long-term needs strong defense. Why? Because it's very simple. Strong defense is a deterrent and prevents war. And by the way, it even is better than that in my opinion. Just to put it bluntly, no country wants beef if they know another country is going to absolutely fucking wipe the floor with them. For example, in World War II, America developed the atomic bomb first. And then they used the atomic bomb. So one, they're like, we have it. Two, we're going to show you what the fuck it does. And after that, there has not been a war of that magnitude since. Yes, there absolutely have been proxy wars. You had the Korean War, the Vietnam War, you got Afghanistan, you got the Iraqi War, you have what's going on now in Ukraine and several others as well. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form at all whatsoever trying to minimize the nastiness of these events. But if we have to make a decision between massive World War II or relatively small proxy war over here, again, not minimizing what those people go through, not saying at all that it is not terrible for them or anything like this. It is. It absolutely is. It's very disgusting. But in terms of the whole, what is more preferable if you have to choose between one or the other? Obviously, it's going to be the smaller one. I think most people would agree with. If you don't agree with that, then, well, we see things very differently, I suppose. But yeah, a strong defense technology basically prevents more wars than it starts. And yes, we still do have wars, but that is basically two countries using proxies to kind of figure out, okay, are you still more powerful than us or not? Because we're trying to figure out, like, where do we actually stand? That's what a lot of this stuff is. And it's really fucking sick. I mean, it's basically a testing ground for weapons, with people as the intended collateral. It's fucking disgusting. But that is the way of the world. And you have to think of it like this. And this really opened my eyes when I made this realization. I'm sad I didn't make it earlier. Yes, it's great to think kumbaya, everyone should get along, blah, 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 blah. Of course, that's what you're supposed to think when you're young. But look, every country wants to be number one if they could be. Why? Because there are great powers and great luxuries that you get with being the world number one. Superpower. I mean, just look at the United States for the past 100 years almost. It's amazing. Every other country would want to be that if they could. So in order to, one, maintain your superiority, you need to invest in that technology. And then, of course, everyone else who's basically playing a game of King of Hill of countries, Game of Thrones, basically, they also want to be number one. So what are they going to do? They're going to invest in that as well. So it's existential for any country. Even your allies aren't necessarily your allies. I mean, these people fucking spy on each other all the time. But yeah. And of course, even if we were all kumbaya, it only takes one crazy country or even just one crazy leader of a country. So just one crazy person who's in a leadership position of a country to say, fuck all of that, I'm taking over. And if we invest in it and no one else is doing it, then we can just take over whatever the fuck we want. So it's in my opinion, it is actually more moral to invest in these things than not. I know that that's not going to jive well with many people. That's fine. We can agree to disagree. We can have different opinions. That's fine. But in my opinion, that is more based in reality, at least from what I know as of this moment in time. And of course, in the event of a real conflict, you're going to fucking wish that you invested as much as you could priorly afford to. Why? Because it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Full fucking stop. Anyways, looking at these ETFs here, this is my favorite one. This is the most forward-thinking defense technology. This one's like focused on, AI integration, drones, these sort of things, like crazy black ops type stuff. And this one I got into relatively recently this year. It's been up about 72.5%. Very, very nice. And I want to take a second to explain why this chart speaks so much to me, because during these corrective periods, which every stock had a correction or a couple of corrections in 2025, both in January and then again in April, the ones that bounced the fastest and hardest from the lows is a strong indication that it is going to be a winner long term. And like we went over earlier in this video, the winners win long term. If you take one thing away from this video, I hope it's this, because I really do believe that this is as true as it gets. Winners fucking win, and over time they win more and more and more, and the losers do not play catch up. They just lose more and more over time. Yes, they might have their pops here and there, but I'll give you an example using a crypto just because it's easy to kind of plot these things against each other. But Ethereum versus Bitcoin, right? It's going up right now. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's amazing. Ethereum is amazing. Yes, it's going up. It's going up a lot. I think it goes up more. I do think it goes up more. I've been saying this for a long time. But long term, is this a good investment relative to Bitcoin? Fuck no. Fuck no. We have almost a decade or about a decade of this thing generally stagnant and down. It's not a good thing. Winners continue to win at an ever increasing pace as time goes on. And it's very true with stocks. I mean, Jesus, just look at the top 7 again, technology stocks. Anyways, back into it. Let's look at ITA. This one, a little bit more traditional defense, aerospace defense type stuff. This one I got into more recently here, not exactly at the low, but from that low up more than 54%. Not bad. Again, I really like that sharp move to the upside after correction. That's a really good sign in my book. Yes, there's going to be more corrections along the way. Of course, yes, nothing goes up in a straight line, but looking very, very good right there. And then I have EUAD, my most terrible, worthless position. This is European Defense Technology ETF. Again, I was just living in Europe at the time and thought, oh, well, might as well at least invest in these people who are trying to be competent, I guess. And in this one, I'm probably at a small loss right now, if anything. Do I think it's going to do well over time? Probably yes, but again, this is certainly my overwhelmingly insignificant position in that space. Moving on, we have AI and robotics. I like RobT and Robo for this one. These are just robotics and AI ETFs. They're very, very similar, by the way. Don't really have to choose one or the other, to be honest, but there is one chart that is, better than the other one right now, I guess. But yeah, again, just I have a personal belief that these technologies are going to be responsible for the majority of productivity and efficiency in the AI age. More importantly, it solves a very real issue that the world is dealing with, the population collapse. So if you are aware, in the Western world, and actually most places in the world, except for maybe many places in Africa and Asia, population collapse is a real issue. And why is that an issue? Like, they don't really ever explain why it's an issue. People just think, oh, well, there's gonna be less people. That's fine. I fucking hate living next to all these people anyways. It sucks. But if you think one step past that, just one step past that, you realize that if population is declining, then guess what? You have less people who are working. And if you have less people who are working, then your productivity goes down. And if your productivity goes down, what else goes down? Your GDP goes down. And then what's going to happen? Your quality of life is going to go down because your country is not enjoying as much wealth as it was priorly. Now, this is a real issue, and it still is. And this is what I believe a lot of Western countries are trying to accomplish by importing a lot of people from Africa and in Asia, from kind of disadvantaged countries. Again, I'm not making it as a statement against these people or anything like that, but their countries are just, a lot of them are really fucked up. And so these Western countries import them, wanting to solve that population collapse issue. I'm not saying that they are doing a good job of it, by the way. I don't think that they are, but that, I believe, is the idea. And it probably would be useful if if the elites tried to actually fucking explain that to the common person, then you wouldn't think all these crazy things. But at the same time, yeah, I think that the execution of this plan or the results of this plan are not going very well. At least that's my own observation. Anyways, I think it's going to be a moot point, because AI and robotics, if you've used these things, you understand that AI can do the job of 1 million people at once. Robotics, you got a house, you got a warehouse full of robotics. You can make whatever the fuck you want. They work day and night. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They don't complain. They don't really have a salary except for their monthly electricity costs. I mean, who's not going to take that as I take a sip of this water? So yeah. Um, anyways, they're needed by businesses and personal consumers alike. And personally, I grew up before the advent of the internet. And I remember when the internet came around, it's pretty awesome, but it wasn't like, it wasn't super transformational for everyone right at the beginning when it came out in like 1998 or something like this. It wasn't until like the late 2000s, maybe 2008, 2009, 2010, where everyone in their business was online and, it was very, very mainstream. Whereas AI, I feel like, has become mainstream in like a year. And personally, I cannot even fathom a life without ChatGPT at this point. Like I don't know what the fuck to do. I don't know how to make decisions anymore. Um, so yeah. Anyways, as far as charts goes, yes, like I said, one of these is significantly better than the other. I believe it's actually this one. Yeah, this one is the better one. This is ROBO. Great name, robotics. This one's been, hasn't had an amazing bounce from the lows. Certainly hasn't made new highs, but from the time that I got in, about 38% almost. So not bad, but these are much more long-term plays. Like I said, I have 10-year long horizons on pretty much everything that we're looking at today, at least. And this thing I think could maybe even stay in this range for another, 3 to 5 years. Like this could take some time, but long-term, I have a strong, strong, strong conviction, similar to Bitcoin, that these are only going to become more and more used. And then Rob T it's basically the same chart, not as good. So if you do have to choose between these, it does seem like a winner is being kind of decided here. But yeah, this one, more or less same chart, not as good, but minimal differences. Anyways, moving on, we got biotechnology. So just another technology ETF, this time focused on health. In sort of my thesis and sort of just what I'm thinking here, because I hate that fucking word thesis, is note if you had a person who could choose between a more healthy life and a less healthy life, everything else equal, what are they going to choose? What do you think they're going to choose? Are they going to choose a world without cancer or with cancer if they could eradicate it immediately? Well, what's going to help in that regard? Technology with regards to health and AI being implemented in these things, I think really does, from what I understand, really does have a potential to change that game. Anyways, looking at this chart, this one's been around for a lot longer. This one I even traded when I was like, in the actual traditional markets as a more active trader. But again, similar thing here. I think it could be consolidated between 105 on the upside versus 67 for the next, 3 to 5 years. It's had a nice bounce from the lows here when I got in, just below around 75, 20%, but not nearly as good as, as everything else. Again, very, very long-term play. VUG, this is just a growth ETF from Vanguard. Again, the sort of idea here, during fiat debasements, growth stocks will generally benefit the most from increasing liquidity, aka inflation going up. Showing off the chart, it has done incredibly well because that is the period of time that we're in. Again, from that sort of April low, or from about where I got in, it's been about almost 38% to the upside. Very, very nice. Super, super simple sort of idea here, honestly. But yeah, that also means that if inflation stops becoming, or stops being the sort of modus operandi of our, or the backbone of our economic system, then something like this is going to be absolutely fucking demolished, as will Bitcoin most likely too. Anyways, my dividend stocks, STRK and STRF, they give out an 8 to 10% dividend respectively. STRF is just a dividend, and the STRK offering is 8% dividend plus you have the option, or you basically have a call option on MicroStrategy stock. By the way, these are related to MicroStrategy. Basically, Michael Saylor's offering. The way that it works is, people invest in these. Michael Saylor gives them a straight up dividend plus, potentially some stock for STRK, and then Michael Saylor takes all of that money and runs and goes buy more Bitcoin for MicroStrategy. Basically the way I understand it. So the dividends generally exceed inflation, so I look at them as a better option than bonds, which is kind of like their counterparts in my opinion. It's like a Bitcoin bond in a way. And, it's just steady income. There's a little bit of potential upside from STRK. I don't think it's a great pick for upside. In fact, I think right now it's going to be going down and probably down a lot more. Again, I hold these things, again, long term. If you are, if you're younger and you're thinking of holding these things for, 10, 15, 20 years, then STRK might make a little bit more sense, because let's say MicroStrategy got to $1,000, may or may not happen. At that point, it makes sense to actually convert a lot of your stock into MicroStrategy, which would, I mean, that would be huge. Anyways, moving on from there, or yeah, I mean, there's a chart. These ones are not the ones that you look at for charts, but STRF actually doing okay, or at least not, not slumping as much as everything else. Although I do think this one will go down as well. Both of them very likely going down, but I don't really hold these things for capital appreciation. Anyways, REMX, rare earth ETFs. So this is, again, a very, very small position here, but these are generally needed for AI and robotics technology. You need these rare earths. It seems like it's also been a big focus of the current administration when Trump was trying to, or did, I guess, negotiate with Ukraine to get some of their rare earth minerals in exchange for collateral for supporting them in their war, I guess. Kind of fucked up, but hey, it is the way of the world, and you need something back, I guess. But yeah, anyways, as far as REMX goes, actually, I think I've talked about this one either on a video or in the Discord. Actually bought it nearly at the lows at around 36, 38 bucks. This thing's been on a massive tear since, at about 68%. Long term, I'm not a humongous fan of this chart, but I do think there is potential long term for a real reversal. I don't think it's happening right here, though, actually. I think it's going to spend some more time going sideways, because this is a really good place to pull back from. But again, ultimately, the idea here is, if AI and robotics are going to play a big portion in the upcoming world, then you're going to need these rare earths, because they are the lifeblood of those, of those systems. Moving on, individualistic stocks. Just kind of quick fire here. Coinbase. I've held this one for a very long time, since 2022. I mean, it's basically related to the whole crypto rush, and I don't want to hold shitcoins or nothing like that, but I'm happy to hold an exchange that will sell it to, I guess, fucking idiots who want to. But no, sorry, not fucking idiots. Look, some people have their reasons, maybe even good reasons, for buying altcoins and whatnot. In my opinion, no altcoin is really a good long-term hold when you have Bitcoin as an option. Just my opinion. Maybe you might like the fundamentals of it. Hey, that's a different game. Fair enough. But very few, I believe there's like less than five coins that have actually appreciated versus Bitcoin over more than a 8-year period. It's maybe like, I think there's 2 off the top of my head that I can think of, and who knows if they're going to continue. And they're also, by the way, exchanges. Anyways, as far as the chart goes, this one I got in way back here, back in 2022. This one like nearly at the low. Up big since then. Obviously, it's not at the high anymore. I think that this one will correct more, but long term, again, if Coinbase is playing the game, which I like them because they have played the game from a legal perspective correctly, right? Like, they've tried to go by the rules as best that they can, and now that they have an administration that is friendly towards these sort of things, I could see it being a big winner. And maybe some other exchanges as well. They'll go IPO soon. I think Kraken and Gemini are going IPO. Tesla, great positioning, long-term vision for interoperability between all of their, AI, robotics, cars, rockets, all these sort of things, man. Generally like Elon. And, as far as charts go, it does have a nice uptrend here. Again, I think that this one could remain at a range between 400 and about 200 for, a couple years, but ultimately long-term, I do like that. Again, great bounce from the April lows as well. Palantir, PLTR, again, embedded in the current administration. Defense technology stock has been a massive winner. So again, I'm looking for winners. I'm looking for the ones that win, because I know that long-term they're going to continue to win. Do I think it's corrective here? Do I think it comes down more here? Yes, I do. However, long-term, up is the name of the game. Winners continue to win. INTC, this one, to be fair, again, it is embedded in the current administration, but I actually picked this one up back in 2022 because it was at multi-decade lows, down around 20 bucks. It's still pretty much more or less there. I guess it's up about 20% from those lows, but that is terrible returns, probably among my worst. But, I just generally like the stock. So it's kind of, I was listening to, I think it was Paul Graham or something Graham, Bill Graham. I forget his name. Oh my God, that is so embarrassing. But his general, he's one of the long-term legendary investors, and his general idea is buy stuff that you actually use and that you have a great product experience with. And I've been building my own computers since 2018, and I fucking love Intel. I love their product. It does absolutely amazingly. AMD I've had terrible experiences with. I know not everyone agrees with that statement. That's fine. Again, I'm just sharing my experience here. If you have a different opinion, it's okay. It's okay. I know people get very fanboyish about this sort of shit, but yeah, this one I really really like. Now it is embedded in the current administration, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I actually use the product, and also I need this water. Then I have a couple of mid-cap defense technology stocks, KTOS, KTOS, and Redcat, RCAT. Growth potential, and in my opinion, the best sector. So definitely my overwhelming big winner here is KTOS. And this one I got in this year, back around here when it was getting ready to break out, a little bit below $30. And this one's absolutely exploded from 28 to a high of 72. Not bad. Again, I'm looking for the sort of future-looking defense technology stocks. My purpose here was to find a mid-cap one with growth potential, because I think that we're still in a period of incentivizing growth names, and also I just like that it's in defense technology, and they seem to be working on issues that, at least from what I understand, are probably where things are going. And then Redcat, same shit, but definitely not as good. Definitely not nearly as good as this chart. But still, not bad nonetheless. Actually, well, to be fair, it also has been up more than 2x since I got in, down around $5.50. But again, this one has a lot of work to do. Long term, I'm not great. I don't love the chart. But yeah, I do think that this one does have good growth potential as well. Super simplistic right there. DFDV, probably my worst position by far. It'll probably be cut at some point. It's a Solana-based DeFi. I didn't want to hold Solana, but it does seem like maybe there might be something there. And if not for anything else, at least the perception of it is good. And I mean, the chart's actually starting to turn around a little bit here, so I guess I'm in a little bit of profit. But ultimately, for DFDV, I will be very very happy to cut this one if it gives me any trouble, basically. So yeah, there's that. Again, just kind of like a flyer, basically. Super super risky. High probability that does not work out at all, but hey, for what it's worth, actually not terrible right there. And then other than that, I want to address a question that I'll probably get at this video. Why no bonds, real estate, these sort of things? Bonds, in my opinion, have been obsolete as investments since 2008, when currency debasement started to get more and more accelerated. You can see the real returns of bonds since 2008 right here. I mean, it's bad. In my opinion, it's bad. Many years have negative returns. And when you do have a positive return year, it's very, very minimal. So for me, looking at a money market, probably better than bonds, even though it kind of is bonds to begin with. But even then, I'd prefer to choose the Bitcoin bond options. Again, that might go terribly for me long term, but I would prefer that over this, because this is basically null to begin with. Real estate, okay, so I want to definitely say this. Real estate has many tax advantages because, well, the government wants to incentivize people to get into real estate, because that is a massive fucking component of the economic system. And when real estate starts to move, the economic system is fucking good. Right now it's not moving, by the way. But as an investment, I don't like it at all, because it's not liquid. So when you actually need it the most, it's very difficult to sell, especially during a bear market. I can tell you from experience, my parents have been trying to sell their house for more than a year. They've had one offer in a year. It's a nice house in a good area. But yeah, they need to fucking sell. And guess what happens when you need to sell and there ain't no fucking buyers? You start marching that price down real fast. It's not great. But yes, there are significant tax advantages for getting into real estate. Maybe I do that at a later time, but for right now, I don't hold really any outside of my own residence, and I don't care to. And then last, I just want to repeat the caveats here. I have a lack of long-term experience. I've only been in the long-term investment game for about 6 years, starting with Bitcoin, which I don't even hold on a fucking wallet. Which I know people will really take like major offense to that, but yeah, I do generally feel better about it just being in a traditional investment account. Like, say what you will about that, it's okay. We can have different opinions. It's fine. I benefited from a general up-only market. This is not to be constituted as this is the best possible portfolio. There will be portfolios that are much better because they focus on individualistic stocks because they're able to find and pick the winners with a high degree of accuracy. I don't trust myself in that way, or at least I want when I do those things, I want them to be a relatively small amount because I know if they do win big, they're gonna, they'll do their thing. They'll do their thing. But for most of it, I just want to capture the gains of the sector. Through that, for that, I use an ETF, which naturally the returns will be diluted. And also, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what I'm doing, long term and why. In the end, use your own brain. Take what's relevant for you, if there is anything at all. Discard the rest, and I'll leave you at that. And also, while we are here, I should say, as I get deeper and deeper into the long-term investment game, I'm going to be uploading more and more content like this. So if you are interested in these sort of things, if you're kind of like me, and you're starting to change in that way, again, I haven't stopped short-term trading, but I want to focus more on this now. But if you're of that same disposition, maybe consider subscribing because I will be uploading more content like this on a regular schedule. Anyways. And by the way, the reason why I'm uploading more content about this is mostly selfish. Why? Because when I'm forced to go back and revisit my choices and explain my choices, I come to a deeper understanding, and then I think it makes me more effective as I reflect on these things. Hopefully, it can be of some value to you as well. But hey, that is my motivation in this. Anyways, I'll shut things off on that note. Take care, much love, and see you